Hello and welcome to my desk. Well, I'm going to be jumping around a lot of things today because I'm in the mood for talking a lot. Well, did anyone watch Bob Owen on Friday? She talked about when you have to paint something white with oil and you got some red, then you're asking for trouble. So you have to wait for either one of the colors to cure or just go in with white first. Well, I am in that situation because I days ago made this guy right here and I want to come in and finish his eyes because I need to paint in the white of his eyes to make him look more cute. But I knew when I was painting him that day that, oh man, I can't do it. I need to wait a couple of days for the oil paint to set a little bit to come on top of black with white. So that's one of the things that I want to achieve today. And then a couple of days ago over at my Patreon, I made this guy here and now I have curated him with Dorland wax that I have buffed like a crazy woman on 8 cups of coffee. I really love that white pale skin tone, and it reminded me of what I'm really good at in oils is to get a very white face when I'm working with the Zorn palette. Oh my god, the Zorn palette. I have these. I have painted a lot of crazy things with the Zorn palette, mostly fruit and still life of porcelain and stuff like that. But I managed to dig out the faces that I have made with the Zorn palette. And as you can see, I can achieve this very white, pale look. Yeah, it's not flattering to me personally, but it's just because I am not skilled working with the Zorn. So I was thinking, you know what, since it's Halloween and since I like that pale clown, I should totally pick a Zorn palette and then try and make a spooky white girl in some sort of a goth style. Yeah, I just want to do that. That's my thought. But before I jump into all of that, I thought that I might talk a little bit about Andreas Zorn and the Zorn palette in general. But before I can show you my Zorn palette, I think I would take you on a little journey around my palette. As you all know, I keep it in this wooden box right here that's totally meant for watercolors, but I'm just testing out and experimenting if I can have a portable palette like this where I'm able to totally close up a lid. So in between painting sessions, and my plan is, to work with oil every day. So I kind of need that kind of feature in a palette, that it's small, easy accessible, being able to close it up to prevent my cat and her hairs to come down into it. And I have not glued anything down, so everything is replaceable and can be switched around. So I got this romantic dream that, oh my god, since I have this setup already, I can actually pull out the pans that I need for the Zorn painting and then just line them up. I want to do that. That once you get an idea in your head, I cannot ignore it. I have to act it out. So that's why we are sitting in this situation right here where I want to work with the Zorn palette, just because I know that I can easily isolate the colors in my palette. So it's going to be a joy for me to utilize that function of my palette today. I want to talk about this palette here. It's been out on my desk. I think I got that idea that 11 days is the maximum for squeezed out oil in a palette that's just lying on your table, but I am really happily surprised over the fact that these paints right here are still A, uncontaminated, B, still creamy, see surprisingly long shelf life, you could call it, desk life. They are still like totally usable and workable, and it's been more than a week, I think. So so far the experiment about containing paint in a container that blocks out air on the side and only expose the paint to air on one lid up here seems to prolong the duration of paint on a palette, because normally, if you are not insane, and I am not sane, you would work in a wooden palette and then have your dollops of paint here, and then you would dig out and mix and everything. But I'm having a different approach to this because I'm crazy. I want to talk about the colors in my palette and how do I work with this. I got this color chart, you could call it, where I am getting to know my colors. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors, and all of these are step outs, which means that you add white to it. So I can easily look at, this is my colors in my palette. What happens when I add white to them? Then I can get these pastel-y, really bright tones. So that's how I navigate. So if I need to have like a baby pink, I know that I should go for the Quin Rose and add white to it. Because if I pick my other red, which is a medium red, like a vermilion red, it is actually a vermilion, my pink will be a little bit different. It will be more like a coral. Yeah, so that's how I navigate. I just glance at this and then I kind of know what I got. But I went all the way, and then I took cat yellow, and then I took the rest of the colors in my palette. What happens if I have a big saturation of cat yellow and then introduce a little smidgen of cadmium red, crimson red, ultramarine, cerulean, raw sienna, burnt umber? Because it gives me a good overlook of how can I, with the dominant cat yellow, get these colors here. Are they leaning toward warm or cold? How can I use them in a mix? I did the same for my medium yellow, and then this is the colors here, and look how different they are when you use like a lemon colored yellow or a medium, like almost like a gamboge yellow. Very, very visible difference in my eyes. And then I took my cadmium red, mixed it into all my colors, and got an idea of how to get these warm, delicious earth tones, like really like dusk mauve, and oh, it's so yummy. And then I did the same with my Quin Rose. That's more like a cooler red. So this is where I get an idea that if I want like purple colors, I should use Quin Rose as the majority in my mixes. And then when I add a smidgen of ultramarine or cerulean or raw sienna or burnt umber, I can get maroon. I can get like a lot of mixes that it's just like a chart, you know. This is my ultramarine, and notice how when you mix ultramarine with raw sienna that you get this collection of, you can get like warm or cool grays with it, which is very useful because I have problems remembering these mixes. Of course, my camera doesn't really pick up the color difference, but it's very, very clear to me. So this is a wonderful work tool. Also, what kind of course you can get different greens, but these greens, like these sage and sea green, are very hard from the top of my head to just remember. How do I mix my way to a sage dark sea green? So that's how I use these charts. This is the cerulean blue. what happens when I play with that color. Love, love, love when you mix it with the alizarin crimson, the purple ones that I get. Really nice. And this is the raw sienna, and it's super useful for me when I'm working with flesh and skin tone, because I tend to lean towards raw sienna instead of yellow ochre. Don't really know why. In watercolor I do the same, because but my excuse for doing so with watercolor is because I don't think that yellow ochre is that transparent, so my mixes often get a little bit muddy. So I just carried on that idea or observation towards my habit with painting with oil, which might be discussable, because oil is a transparent medium, yes, but it's also kind of opaque, you know. So it's a big question. Should you use yellow ochre or raw sienna for your skin tones? I just like to pick for the raw sienna at the moment, but who can tell, I may be different, doing different things in the future the longer I paint with oils. But just check out, can you see how, I know this is a green tone, but you actually have those green tones in your skin. Can you see how just functionable? It just works, man. It's just a go-to pan. This is the burnt umber that I took through the wringer with all the rest of my pans. And now that I've shown you this tool here, you might understand my Zorn tool, because it's built from the exact same principle. When you work with the Zorn palette, it was invented by a Swedish painter called Andreas Zorn, and he had 5 colors. He had a white, an ivory black, a yellow ochre, a vermilion. That's 4. What is the number 5? Is it only 4? I thought it was 5. Okay, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but the way that I utilize Zorn is I say titanium white plus yellow ochre, vermilion, and ivory black. So I give myself a very, very limited oil palette consisting of 4 pans only. And this is what happens when I do step outs of the ochre, vermilion, and ivory. It would be totally stupid to do step up lines of the white, because we know that would just be like white, right? And then I'm working with a lot of mixes that I look at this chart here. And here I'm having like black that I mix with the vermilion, that I mix with the ochre, and then I do step outs of those. And the reason why you have to do that is because when you work with a limited palette, you don't have a lot of choices, so you have to work with third mixes. Like first you do a step up of your ivory, and then you mix it with a step up of a vermilion to get that color, if you know what I mean. So you have to think a little bit when you're working with limited palette. And here I'm working with the ochre that I mix with the vermilion and the ivory and do step up of it. And here I'm working with just the vermilion, and I call it the mother color. The mother is because that's the one that I'm mixing out from, and then I can see my step out. So as you can see, the Zorn palette can provide you with selection of skin tones. The weak point of the Zorn palette is as soon as you start asking questions like, what is it like to paint with the absence of blue? Because we need blue to paint blue skies and green foliage. So how are you going to approach a landscape using the Zorn palette, where you have to trick the eye to make things appear blue or green? I am not skilled at that, so I have mostly enjoyed painting with the Zorn palette on portraits. So who knows, in time I may venture out in trying a landscape in Zorn, but I can kind of predict that my kind of landscape will be like very fall earth tone. So, and I'm not a landscape painter. I'm fooling around with this oil. And I guess that after you have watched my 23 days of my oil painting challenge, you have already now noticed that no, you don't need to paint something totally serious just because you're picking oil as your medium. I think it's a stigma that oil have on it, that you're not allowed to do ridiculous paintings when you're painting with oil. But I am not so serious, so I have just been jumping around in all kinds of themes and topics with my oil palette. But today I am going to work with this kind of cool gray tone. This is a warm gray, a cool grayish, I think, with a very pale white flesh tone. Yeah, that's the plan. Let's see if I can execute it, because you know everything is doable in your noodle, but when you have to get it from the noodle through the hands onto a canvas, a lot of things can go wrong. Okay, so I corrected a little bit on his face. I am not super content with it. I don't really know what it takes, but I don't want to work further on it because this is my thumb. You can see how little an area, if you take and look at the nail at your own thumb, that's the area I got to navigate in. So I think I'm just gonna leave it like this, and then I'm not like totally satisfied. I guess I never will be, but I'm also stuck to the mantra about not everything needs to be living up to my own expectation. I mean, this is a part of a journey, so yeah, I'm just gonna be content with this. It's better than before, at least. Okay, on to the painting session. I kind of liked what I produced today. I was going for that very gray, light, very white skin tone, because I think it's super spooky, and I think it goes well with the time we're in, you know, Halloween. So I wanted to make this little girl that got this very unnatural white skin tone. And I think that I picked, like most painters who are working with the Zorn palette, I picked a grayish, warm gray background. Yeah, I think it's just an easy pick, you know, when you're working with the Zorn palette. I think that I will try and make another painting where I'm working with the Zorn palette, so I kind of got a pair, you know, not a sister to the girl that I'm painting now, but maybe something a little bit similar, so I could put them next to each other. But yeah, I like the way she came out. Thank you for watching. I wish you a nice weekend. Bye bye.